My glass was still half full when he said it. He doesn't know half the story. Mark's voice cut through the chatter like a blade. He said it loud enough for everyone to hear. My wife, her parents, the cousins, the old neighbors from Evanston. The table fell quiet. Forks paused midair, and all eyes turned to me. I didn't flinch. I didn't speak. I just met his eyes across the candlelit table, reading the smug curve at the edge of his mouth. He wanted a reaction. I didn't give him one. Instead, I leaned back in my chair and nodded once. That was my move. Let him feel like he won the first round. Dinner resumed, but the air had changed. The way people looked at me, curious, uncertain. My wife, Claire, reached under the table and touched my knee. He's just being an ass, she whispered. Ignore him. I nodded. But I didn't ignore anything after that. We were at her parents' lake house, that over-decorated monstrosity where the floors creaked like they were trained to gossip. It was her dad's birthday, but the guest list made it clear this was a family summit. Everyone was there. Everyone who mattered, including Mark, Claire's older brother, ex-Marine, now some high-tier consultant in defense contracting. He walked like he still carried a sidearm. Everyone respected him, or feared him, which in that house was the same thing. He never liked me. Said I was too quiet, too soft, too corporate. He was the kind of guy who opened conversations with, "You ever shoot anything bigger than a Glock?" and laughed before you could answer. But tonight was different. He wasn't teasing. He wasn't baiting. He was laying a trap, and he wanted me to step right into it. Say it. I told him later, when we were alone on the porch smoking cigars, his idea of a peace offering. Say what? He said, blowing smoke to the side. Whatever you meant at dinner. He took a slow pull and exhaled like he had all the time in the world. I'm just saying, you've been playing house, man. Thinking you know the rules. I didn't respond. He tapped ash off the end of his cigar. Claire's got secrets. Always has. You're smart, but you're blind where it counts. He turned to me then, fully. You married into something you don't understand. And you've been lied to since day one. Then he smiled. Not mockingly. Not maliciously. More like pity. That smile shook me more than the words. The next morning, I woke up at 5 a.m., still fully dressed. I hadn't really slept. Claire was curled up beside me, soft and warm and unreadable. I stared at the ceiling and replayed every year we'd spent together. Nothing made sense. Until it did. I waited until she left for a run. Her new routine lately. Always an hour. Phone left behind. That was my window. I didn't touch her laptop. She'd changed her password weeks ago. But her tablet? That still auto-synced with her cloud. I tapped the screen. No pin. She never set one. Trusted the house too much. There were files. Lots of them. Old PDFs, receipts, invoices. Most looked normal. Some didn't. A travel itinerary from 2019 to Madrid. She told me she'd gone to visit an old college friend in Paris that week. The flights didn't match. A bank transfer from her personal account. $42,000 wired to a name I didn't recognize. 2 months before our wedding. A photo folder labeled Project Gamma. Password protected. I guessed 3 combinations. None worked. That's when I heard footsteps. I put the tablet down and walked out like nothing happened. She came back flushed and glowing. Coffee, she asked. I nodded, kissed her cheek. Said, love you. The words tasted like lead. That night, I called Mark. He answered on the second ring. I want to know the other half, I said. Silence. Then, you sure? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. He told me to meet him the next day, noon. A parking lot in Arlington, 10 miles from my office. He said to come alone, leave my phone behind, and not to ask questions. I followed every instruction. The lot was half empty, wind slicing through rows of faded lines and salt-stained curbs. Mark sat in an old Jeep, engine idling. I got in, closed the door, and said nothing. He handed me a folder. Thick, heavy, rubber-banded tight. This is what you don't know, he said. I started flipping through it. Claire's name, her email, but the contents? They weren't about fashion or fundraising or the nonprofits she claimed to run. These were contracts, lease agreements, surveillance logs, security reports. One name kept appearing. Aiden Travers. I knew that name. Claire's ex. The one she said cheated on her. The one she said she blocked. The one I thought she hadn't spoken to in a decade. Mark watched my face as I read. They didn't break up, he said quietly. They just changed the arrangement. I looked up. What do you mean? He exhaled through his nose. You weren't the rebound man. You were the cover. I didn't understand, not fully, not yet, but something cracked. The story she'd told me about her past, her family, her motives, started to unspool. Mark leaned in. There's a storage unit 2 counties over. Number 317. Keys taped inside the back cover. I looked at him. What's in it? He just said the rest of the story and started the engine. The key was industrial. Heavy. Not the kind you carry with your house keys. The kind that unlocks things no one's supposed to find. I left the parking lot and drove straight to the address Mark gave me. A nondescript facility an hour outside the city, tucked behind a chain-link fence and rows of dying pines. The air smelled like rust and wet asphalt. I told myself I wasn't nervous, but my hands told a different story. Unit 317 was at the far end, past a row of units that looked untouched for years. I parked, got out, and slid the key into the lock. It turned with a dull clunk. The door screeched as it rolled up. Inside, it was colder than it should have been. A single overhead bulb flickered weakly. Dust clung to everything. A folding table, 2 plastic crates, a safe, and a steel filing cabinet. I started with the crates. The first was filled with envelopes. Dozens of them, all labeled by date. Inside each was a flash drive and a printed summary. Surveillance, photos, videos, GPS logs. All of Claire. At airports, in cars, at restaurants with Aiden Travers. Over and over again. Across years. Across cities. Some photos were recent, from last month. A hotel in Phoenix. A private club in Manhattan. Her arm looped through as like nothing had changed. Except it had. She married me, and lied every day since. The summaries detailed more than just movements. They listed financial transactions, registered companies, even alias names. Claire Beaumont wasn't just seeing her ex. She was running something with him. A holding company, Phoenix Ren Capital. Shell accounts across jurisdictions. One traced back to a wire transfer from my business account 2 years ago. I checked the date. It was the week she convinced me to help fund a grant project she said was for an educational nonprofit. I remembered that day. The way she touched my arm, leaned in, said, "It's for something good." She wasn't wrong. It was good for them. The second crate had more personal items. Her passport. Multiple ones, actually, one in her maiden name, another in a name I didn't recognize. A burner phone. A thumb drive labeled Inheritance Backup. I plugged it into my laptop. Password protected. But the metadata? The files had been opened and edited 2 weeks ago. Last access, 3:17 a.m. The same night she told me she couldn't sleep and went to the guest room to read. I opened the safe next. Inside was a ledger. Handwritten. Pages of coded notes, dollar amounts, initials, dates. At the top of every page, the same symbol. An uppercase T inside a triangle. It wasn't a logo I recognized, but it was everywhere, even stamped into the back of a black metal card I found underneath the ledger. That card had no name, no numbers, just a chip and a symbol, and a note beneath it. Use once, and only if you're ready. I left the card. I wasn't ready. The last item was a plain manila folder in the filing cabinet. Inside, a copy of our prenup, highlighted in 3 places, all with notes in Claire's handwriting. She'd been planning a financial move, a timed exit, but something changed. She didn't leave me, not yet, because something about me was still useful. And then I found it, an audio file, buried in a folder labeled Insurance. The voice was unmistakable. "Claire, we keep him happy. That's all that matters right now. He signs what we need. He vouches when required. If it comes to it, we walk, but only when the rest is cleared offshore." Then a man's voice. "Aiden, you sure he's that naive?" Her laugh cut deep. "He loves me. That's not naivety. That's leverage." I closed the laptop. Stood there, silent. My breath fogged in the cold air. For the first time in years, I felt like I was standing outside my own life, looking in, like a stranger. Mark hadn't just exposed an affair. He'd handed me blueprints. Financial, legal, personal. Claire hadn't married me by accident. I was the asset, the liquidity, the clean name. But now I wasn't blind. I didn't call her that night. I didn't go home. Instead, I drove to a hotel near the river, paid cash, and didn't use my ID. I showered, sat at the edge of the bed, and made 3 lists. Assets, leverage, exposure. I'd been part of her scheme, unknowingly. But if I flipped the board now, I could make it mine. I reached out to an old friend, Jonathan Miles. Corporate auditor. Quiet. Discreet. Owed me a favor. I sent him encrypted copies of everything. Told him to start digging into Phoenix Ren Capital. Every alias. Every transaction. Every tax trail. Then I called Kevin, my lawyer. Told him I wanted a full marital asset audit, going back 6 years. No reason given. Just do it. Trust me. He agreed. The next morning, Claire called. Cheerful. Unaware. I was thinking we should take a trip, she said. You've been working too much. I told her I'd think about it. I was already planning something else. She thought I'd stay silent. Thought I'd look the other way. But Claire didn't know half the story either. Because she forgot something critical about me. I don't react. I restructure. And she was about to learn what that meant. 2 weeks passed before I moved. Quietly. Surgically. Claire thought I was back to normal. She leaned on me like always. Told me about new grand opportunities. Hinted at needing another $80,000 to close a partnership. I nodded, took notes, pretended to care. At night, she curled into me like nothing had changed. She still said, I love you, like she meant it. Maybe she did, in her own twisted, calculated way. But I didn't love her anymore. I was just studying the fall. Jonathan sent the report in 3 days early. Phoenix Ren Capital wasn't just a shell, it was a laundering funnel. Dirty money in, clean charitable transactions out. And my signature, my name, had been leveraged to legitimize over $600,000 in false donations. Claire's fingerprints were everywhere. So was Aiden's. Kevin confirmed my fears. Claire had recently attempted to move several joint assets into her maiden name trust, hidden under a philanthropic front. She wasn't just preparing to leave. She was preparing to leave clean. And leave me burned. I didn't rage. I didn't panic. I made one phone call. Then another. By Friday, everything was in place. I waited until the Hamilton Foundation Gala. A black tie event. Hundreds of people. Politicians. Investors. Claire was on the speaker list, set to receive an award for innovative philanthropy. She spent the day rehearsing her speech in the mirror. I adjusted her mic, smiled. That night, she stood on stage in a silver dress, diamonds at her throat. She was electric. Charming. The perfect image. Until the lights flickered. A pause. Then the screen behind her changed. Slide 1. A document with her signature, authorizing a wire transfer to an account in Cyprus. Slide 2. Surveillance footage of her meeting Aiden outside the Madrid hotel. Slide 3. The ledger from the storage unit. No audio. No narration. Just damning silence. The room froze. Claire turned, slowly, her face unraveling as the images cycled behind her. And then came the final slide. All materials have been submitted to the IRS, FBI, and Financial Crimes Division. This is not a hack. This is a reckoning. Panic spread. Phones came out. Whispers turned to murmurs. Claire dropped the mic literally. Security moved in. 2 federal agents stepped out from the back. One approached the stage. The other came straight toward me. Not to arrest me, to shake my hand. They'd received the package a week ago. Everything cross-referenced, documented, time-stamped. My name cleared. Claire and Aiden's network exposed. It wasn't just fraud. It was conspiracy, embezzlement, racketeering. I'd built the case in silence. While Claire rehearsed a speech, I orchestrated her undoing. They escorted her out mid-gala. No cuffs. Not yet. But the cameras rolled as she walked, face pale, breath shallow. Her legacy ended in front of flashing lights. I stayed behind, shook hands, smiled politely, accepted quiet nods of respect from people who'd once barely remembered my name. 3 days later, Claire called from a federal holding facility. I didn't answer. Her lawyer called next. Then Aiden's. They wanted to talk settlement. I had no interest. The investigation moved fast. So did the headlines. Claire's face was plastered everywhere. Philanthropist turned fraudster. Fake charity, real prison. She made bail. Briefly. But the charges were too heavy. The paper trail too clean. She'll serve time. So will Aiden. As for me, I sold everything. Liquidated the house. Left the city. Changed my name, not out of fear, but freedom. People say revenge is about pain. It's not. It's about precision. I didn't destroy her. I let her build the stage, hang the curtains, invite the crowd. And then I pulled the rope. Mark called last week. Said I did what he couldn't. That I turned quiet into lethal. He was right. Claire once said love was leverage. She was wrong. Truth is, information is leverage, and I own all of it.